Hello everyone. So today we are going to see about second normal form. So I have already created video on normalization and first normal form. If you didn't watch that video, then watch. So for a table to be in a second normal form, it should satisfy two conditions. That is, it should be in the first normal form and there should be no partial dependence. So before understanding this partial dependency, we have to understand what is a dependence. So in a table, if non-key columns, that is the non-primary key, are depends on the key columns, that is the primary key, then it is called as a fully dependence. So let's suppose we have three columns, that is A, B, C, D, and here A is a primary key column and B, C, D is a non-key columns. So if these non-primary key columns are dependent on this primary key column, then it is called as fully dependence. Then let us see what is called as a partial dependence. So in a table, if non-key columns, that is non-primary key columns, depends on the part of the key column, then it is called as a partial dependency. So let's suppose in the table A and B are the composite primary key and C and D are the non-key columns. So here A, B is the key columns and C, D are non-key columns. Then if D depends on B and not on A column, then it is called as partial dependence. So let's suppose we have column A, B, C, D. These A and B are the composite primary key, composite PK, and C and D are not a primary key, that is non-key columns. So if D is only depend on the B column but not on the A column, then it is called as a partial dependence. It is D is depend on the part of the composite primary key. So this is what is the partial dependency. A non-key column depends on the part of the key column, then it is called as a partial dependence. So let's see the practical example. So let's suppose we have the score table. In that we have student ID, subject ID, marks and teacher name. So the student ID and subject ID are composite primary key. So here you can see the teacher. This column is only depends on the subject ID but not on the student ID. So here is a partial dependency. That means this table is not in a second normal form because here teacher is non-key column is depend on the part of the composite primary key, not fully dependent on this composite primary key. It is depend on only the part of the composite primary key. So teacher is only depend on the subject ID, not on the student ID. How? So student will change year by year, so the teacher will not be on the depend on student ID, it is depend on the subject ID. So after 1 year the student ID will be changed, next student will become, but the subject teacher will remain constant. So this only depend on the subject ID, not on the student ID. So in the above score table, teacher column is only depends on the subject ID but not on the student ID. So this is called as a partial dependency. So the table is not in the second normal form. So how can we remove this partial dependency to be the table in a second normal form? So we can create two different tables, that is score table and subject table. So in the score table we will only store the student ID, subject ID and marks, and for the subject teacher we will create another table, that is with the subject table name. So in that we will store subject ID, subject name and teacher name. So here you can see the marks will be depend on subject ID as well as student ID. So here there will be no partial dependency. So now the score table is now in the second normal form with no partial dependency. So here we can see there is a no partial dependence. So this is about the second normal form. So the table to be in the second normal form, it must satisfy two conditions. That is, table should be in the first normal form. Second one is there should be no partial dependence. So this is about second normal form.